Oh, Seven Citizens Black here, and today I wanted to go over the current vehicle lineup that we could or should see within the 319 life cycle. Now, what do I mean by life cycle? Well, I'm considering the 319 life cycle to cover the period of March through June, which would include any point patched, such as a 3.19.1, which I believe we might see around Invictus Week, assuming that 319 can be released around April. Usually a 0.1 patch can introduce some bug fixes and usually vehicles that were not quite ready for the 319 update, and also those vehicles that might show up during the Invictus Ships sales. Now, before I get into those vehicles, let me first ask that if you like what I do here and have been to the channel more than once now, that you go ahead and click that subscribe button. Liking the videos and commenting is also a huge help, and I enjoy hearing from you all and responding, even if we don't always see eye to eye. And so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into these ships. Alright, so for this video, I will not be guessing what is to be released, but using the roadmap, which I cover in depth in a monthly series for those who do not like reading it themselves and want it broken down a little bit more. I do my roadmap breakdowns the second week of the month shortly after that week's latest roadmap roundup. There will not be a roadmap roundup this month, so I'll not be doing one this month, but expect my breakdown of the mega roadmap update we'll be getting in February, as it will be interesting to see what was moved on or off the roadmap and which items will be pushed back. I'm keeping tabs, so be sure to subscribe and get notified when I drop those videos. Also, please understand that since I'm using the current roadmap before they update it next month, that things might change as they always do, so any vehicles that show up ready to be released this coming quarter might still not show up until later or get pushed back even further, so take these predictions with a grain of salt. The first ship that is due to be completed is the Argo SRV. The EU vehicle content team is scheduled to have this completed by the end of February. The SRV is a ship tugboat in space capable of carrying freight containers or even ships, whether that be for salvage or even piracy, and later on search and rescue. This ship will play such a vital role in the upcoming months as we get more ship salvaging and even ship repair. Once vehicle tractor beams go into the game, which is currently slated for this summer, vehicles will no longer have to go into a soft death, but could be towed in for repairs or possibly even repaired out in space through two other vehicles that are sure to be pushed forward in the production soon, as their need is now becoming more urgent. Until those repair ships can make it into the verse though, the SRV will be how disabled ships are taken to the nearest repair facility, so it's a ship worth watching and probably owning. The next ship is not one I expect to see with a first iteration of 319, but could be a 319.1 or 319.2 patch around June, and maybe just in time for Invictus, as we saw the same thing happen with the Drake Mule last year, where it was introduced into Invictus, and yet the roadmap showed work on it into June, similar to how the Spirit is showing now. Of course, the map could end up changing and the Spirit could be pushed off a month or two or longer, but I think it's likely we might see at least one or two of these variants in time for Invictus Week. If we compare how the Hercules variants happened, they released two versions and then pushed the bomber versions out a few months later. For those of you who do not know, the Spirit is a set of three variants from Crusader that was first announced during CitizenCon a few months ago now, but had been started months beforehand, with there being a cargo variant, the C1, a bomber version, the A1, and a citizen executive transport option, the E1. With the design language for Crusader being more than established, I believe we should at the very least see the C1 release. Most people are hyped for the E1, and with work finishing the last couple of months for rescue and transport missions, as well as AI commuter, I think it's possible we might also see the E1 with transport missions implemented as well, and perhaps we'll even see rescue missions sooner, such as in 319, but more on that in a sister video I'll be releasing shortly around the time of this one. Now, the next ship heading our way is the Miss Hull C, which is currently scheduled to also finish in February. If the Hull C arrives with 319, it will be the largest cargo ship in the game at that point, surpassing the current leader, the C2 Hercules, by more than 4 times its cargo. The only problem with that is, as things currently stand, is that trade is not in the greatest place at the moment, especially if we're supposed to have full utilization of this ship. Trading will need to get a lot better, which could be something else coming with 319 that I will discuss in that other video I'm producing. Might we finally get the RSI Lynx? This Ursa variant, which will fit into the Constellation class of ships, might be a cool new ground vehicle to take to bunkers or possibly even to do more with. My fingers being crossed, it houses some medical support, but that might not be likely unless they are working on another unannounced variant of this class. Little is known about it, and so hopefully with its work coming to an end in March, we might finally see it with 319 or a 319.1 patch. I like the Ursa, so I'm looking forward to the Lynx to see if it offers up more use as ground vehicles are really starting to come into their own and be more useful as we get varying types of bunkers and derelicts for FPS combat. There is another ship which shows that its development will be completed in June, which is just in time for the Alien Week ship sale, and that is the Aopoa Santakie. Now, I think it's likely this ship will make it in time for the Alien Week sale, and this medium fighter should easily be ready, which will offer a nice alien ship for that event. This size 2 fighter should make a nice addition to those who enjoy the alien variety, and I'm including it here because by all accounts, we should still be in the 319 life cycle at that point. Now, another vehicle that is a little late in the schedule, showing a completion time of late June, and therefore might not make it in time for the Invictus Week ship sale and could honestly be pushed off until 3.20, but because there's a possibility it could end up being in the 319 life cycle, I'll include it, and that is the Origin X1, which will have 2 variants. Now, we've not heard if both variants will come out at the same time, but there is a racing version, the Velocity, and then a touring model with extra shields, the Force. This hoverbike is meant to fit into Origin 400i, so this will pair nicely for those who want to have a matching ground vehicle with that ship. I like racing, and so it will be nice to see another option in that arena. Alright, now as far as ships that we know are being worked on and have finished times that fall within the 319 life cycle, there are no more announced ships, but that doesn't mean that there is not more ships that we can expect, and in fact, there are a few on the roadmap with development times that finish within the 319 life cycle, and especially with Invictus Week coming, which is always a good time for a new ship to be debuted for sale, we can count on at least 1 or 2 showing up. The first one on the list that ends its development in May began its development in February of 2022. Now this suggests it's a rather larger vehicle, as those that are small to medium-sized ship or ground vehicles generally take around a year or less. If this ship keeps its targeted May finish timeline, this could be a large surprise ship that will be the main attraction for Invictus Week. I do not have any guesses as to what we might see, but with it being Invictus, it will most likely be a medium or large battleship. The next ship showing an April finish timeline could very well be something before Invictus and maybe coming with 319 as a surprise. Now, if I had to guess, I would say due to its length of development time having started in just August of 2022, that it's a variant of some sort. It could be a ground vehicle, as mentioned with the RSI Lynx. I think a medical ground vehicle is in the works, or should be, and if we don't see that with the RSI brand and the Lynx, it could be another manufactured ground vehicle, like maybe something on the Anvil line. Just a guess, but we'll see. The next vehicle is slated to begin in February and goes through May, and this, if it holds onto the schedule, is either a small variant of a ground vehicle or a starter ship. Might it be a cutter variant? Either way, it will either slip from the schedule after the roadmap is updated next month, or it will be something that does not require a lot of work, which points heavily to something small, and with the success of the new starter ship, I think we might see more starter ships coming to entice all the new players we've been getting lately. Now, there is another vehicle slated to have around 15 weeks of work that will end in June, and this could be something for Invictus, Alien Week, or maybe even something for 320. Again, it looks to be something small like another ground variant or starter ship variant, and this might slip into a later timeline, so we'll see how things shake up after February. We have yet another ship that began in November of 2022 and comes to an end in May of 2023, right in time for Invictus, and so we could be looking at yet another variation being released. Now, with all these variations possibly coming up, I have to say that I'm a fan of this approach. This could be an entirely new starter ship or something around that size, which I think is great if it turns out to be true. I think fleshing out and giving more starter ships or sub $100 ships is a great way to offer up new players some options and goals to move up to from their bare bones starter packages. Might we get something like a small ship that could do some mining on smaller rocks like Hadanite without the need to have a ground vehicle and loading it up and taking it out, etc. That could be interesting, or maybe even a smaller salvaging ship or or one that could be outfitted to do either. That's probably more than what we could expect in such a small time frame, but it does show that there are more options to be had out there. Alright, so there is one more unannounced ship that began in November 2022 and ends in late February, which again to me falls within the line of variants. Now keep in mind that with so many unannounced ships that are falling within this 319 timeline, that some of these could not be completed, but simply started, or they might not come to fruition at all. But I think it's safe to say that more variants and smaller vehicles are on the way throughout 2023. Alright, so that's going to do it for this 319 vehicle expectations guide. As with anything Star Citizen related, it is all subject to change. I think after next month we will have a more clear vision as to what is coming and where these vehicles will fall. Something like the SRV might not show up until summertime when the vehicle tractor beams are done, which would make sense. Let me know down below how you're feeling about the upcoming lineup and what are your thoughts or guesses on what we can expect. Of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts and get some conversations going. Now remember to be kind to your fellow gamer, don't let the groundhog be the only prognosticator, and stay positive citizens.